Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, and we are here for another More Insights and Strategy Insider podcast. And for those of you who might not be familiar with the insider portion of our podcast, this is where we interview the most influential people from the companies that are making it happen. And I am thrilled to be diving into the OT breach with Dr. Terence Liu, CEO of TXOne Networks. Dr. Liu, how are you?
Fantastic. How are you, Pat?
Doing great. I know you're a jet setter. You're in Texas. You're in Japan. I think you're in Taipei right now. Is that correct?
Sure. Thanks for having me here. Excited.
Now, it's very exciting. And I'll tell you what, if there's one topic that I think I can say I talk about the most, it is security. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. But first of all, Terence, if you can tell us a little bit about TXOne Networks. Obviously, you're the CEO, so you run the show. But most importantly, what are some of the pain points that your company is trying to relieve here?
Of course, we always love to talk about ourselves. So TX1, TX1 Networks is a cybersecurity company. But unlike typical cybersecurity companies who focus on protecting, laptops, servers, data centers of enterprise, where we call it IT, they are more like intangible when you think of cyber, right? And TX1, we protect OT, the operational technology. It's like the shop floor and production lines of the manufacturers over critical infrastructures like power plants, substation, offshore oil rig, water plant, transportation, and etc. So basically, we are protecting those computer systems, but they don't really look like traditional computers in smart manufacturing and smart city. And why? Because digitalization is an inevitable trend, right? I mean,
Right.
the world is trying to digitalize everything because we want to increase the efficiency, utilization, and etc. of the manufacturing process. And so machines are getting smarter too. So we have been using the IT technologies in OT for a while. And that's another angle of so-called IT OT convergence. And therefore, the same cyber threats that could impact IT will also impact the OT as well. And the pandemic just make it worse, right? In pandemic time, you have more remote access because people work from home, and also you want to have a more autonomous operation, more automated operation. So basically, you want the whole OT become smarter, more quickly, and so that also make the cyber threat more tangible. And
And
I can give you, yeah.
yeah, this is an area that we've been researching forever. In fact, one of our first white papers as a company was talking about the industrial IoT and segmenting the
Yeah,
industry. And it's funny, if I look back even 11 years ago, one of the bigger challenges was security, but the holy grail, right? The big opportunity for these companies to modernize what they do and pull that data out of those OT systems and connect that to IT, it has been a challenge. So what you're talking about, what your company does, solves a critical need for the industry and the ability for the industry grow. But as you were going through that, I was wondering what makes securing operational technology, OT networks, different or more of a challenge for companies and securing that information and data.
yeah, I'm so glad to know that 11 years ago, you already talked about the vertical segmentation thing. And actually, we are talking about segmentation here as well,
Yeah.
here today. I mean, yeah, because why? Because it was not happening. I mean, people didn't really pay so much attention to cybersecurity in OT before, and so it's kind of slow. But now, because of the pandemic, also the changing of hackers' business model. Now, manufacturers has been most target vertical in the world, and so people are really paying attention to this important subject. But basically, why it's different? Because again, this is a new field. Not so many companies. I would say maybe some 3-4 dozens of companies are now looking into this. But I think this is still quite new. But the environments are so different because when you think of IT, laptops are basically the same, right? I mean, IT people, you can install whatever you want, right? I mean, you own this machine.
Right.
But in OT, right, you have large OEMs like a Siemens, a Schneider, Emerson, Honeywell, right? And actually, I tell you, they own the machine.
Right.
Right, you don't install whatever you want just simply onto that machine. Why? Because you worry about compatibility, right? And if you need to upgrade, you want to change some important component. You don't do that by your own. You call them, right? But in IT world, you basically own the machine, so you got the ownership. And some of my customers, I mean manufacturers, they have the machine actually consigned by their customers. So basically, their customer buying the machine and put it into their shop floor. So it's more difficult to deploy cybersecurity in such environment. And in IT, well, the servers, the laptops, the language they speak is like Office 365, Oracle, Salesforce, you name it. But in OT, they need to speak the OEM's language. They need to speak Siemens protocol, Rockwell protocol, right? So they are also different. And the third thing is limitation. In OT, especially in the bottom of the OT, the equipment, the devices are not getting the internet access, which means if they just install general antivirus, they don't get the update, and then the effectiveness, maybe the efficacy may drop to only like a half. And also, not to mention their CPU, right? I mean, the processor of those legacy systems could be very slow and cannot afford the antivirus. And sometimes the network latency is also a problem. But I think the last but not the least is the priority. So in IT, cybersecurity is so important. That's why we always talk about CIA. That's a confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? But in OT, the highest priority is actually the availability. So you don't want to impact the operation just by deploying the cybersecurity stuff. So, that's why at TXOne, our slogan is keep operation running. We don't talk about any security thing in our slogan because that's the whole thing about keep operation running.
Right. You're essentially, your tagline or your expression is all about the net benefit at the end of the day, which is keeping those factories running, keeping that energy company moving. I'm reminded, I still do, as an analyst, I do a lot of site walks, and whether that's a PCA, a PCB factory, final assembly. I was at a factory up in Dallas, near where you're located, where they were doing full assembly and PCB and PCA for telephony equipment. And I'm reminded when I look at some of these machines, I'm wondering, how are those protected? Now, in the older factories, right, I kind of know because they're running Windows XP, that is not necessarily a modern approach to security. Because quite frankly, I mean, and I'm glad you added the older CPUs that can't even run the antivirus software that's out there. I forgot that, but it's true. And I'd be even surprised if it would even run that. So the industry definitely needs a different type of solution. And I did a site walk of your website, and I do appreciate the different levels that you're offering. One thing I did notice, and we talked about this in the green room, is we talked about OT native, right? First of all, that was a new expression that I had never heard before. But first of all, what is OT native solution, and why is it important for protecting these industrial control systems that we just talked about?
Right. As I mentioned, OT cybersecurity is a new thing. But when we talk about OT cybersecurity, I myself believe OT is more important. And because right now you have two campaigns. One campaign, people from IT cybersecurity, they know very much about cybersecurity. But you have the other campaign, other group of people, they know OT so much. But because people don't pay so much attention to cybersecurity, so they don't really know how to use cybersecurity to protect OT. And so I think most important thing is we have to bridge the two groups of people to apply the IT security into OT. However, you cannot just use IT security technologies with the original configuration and with the original expectation. Because as I mentioned, the OT environments are just different. So we need to understand the priority. For example, since keep operation running is a top priority, we don't want the cybersecurity thing to impact the operation. So fail safe is very important. I mean, even you provide a hardware box, like we do have so-called network security box to protect the industrial network. However, how if there is a power shortage? Would that impact the network? In our case, no, right? Because even our box fails, we still want the network goes as usual, right? And then go back. Our solutions need to speak the same language like as OT machines. So we need to understand protocols from Siemens, from Rockwell, from Emerson, and etc. And we also need to learn about so-called OT applications because from time to time we see customers using traditional IT solutions in OT, and the IT antivirus just classify the OT applications as virus and quarantine it. And that would also impact the operation, right? So at TXOne, we collect thousands of popular OT applications. And the other thing is to make friends. So, OT native and in IT, so we need to make friends with people like Microsoft, with VMware, with Amazon, right? But in OT, we need to have alliance with people like Schneider, like Yokogawa and ABB, so that we can understand their machine more, understand their language protocol more. So I think we call it OT native because our solutions are designed from scratch for OT. We would just not take the IT solution into OT and ask customers say use it, right? Because we know maybe it work, but not so well.
Yeah, Terence, you reminded me talking about ABB and all of the different OT companies out there that about 10 years ago, we did a paper that outlined about 150 different ways to connect OT systems. We literally have a paper that has every one of those listed on there. I forget why we did it, but it's a reminder just how different of a world it is. And, while there's magic by connecting IT and OT, there's also, even if you don't connect OT, but it's connected to the network, for some reason, you're left exposed. So you definitely operate in a unique world here. So in the area of security, this idea of zero trust it's not only a buzzword, but it's a very important way of conducting security, basically, which says we trust nothing, right? You have to prove to me that you have the right to be here, as opposed to the way that most of IT and a little bit of OT worked for the past 30 years. Can you talk about your unique approach to zero trust? What makes it better, or what makes it different?
Of course. Zero trust is a big word in security. And why zero trust? Because in the old good days, enterprise, we have a firewall, right? Outside the firewall, we call it untrusted zone. And
Yeah.
inside the firewall, we call it trusted zone, right? That's the best ABC of cybersecurity. But at that time, our employee, they worked inside the wall, and we have services like a web service, email service inside the wall. So we can just put a wall in the perimeter of the enterprise. But now you have people work from home. Actually, many companies, they have people always work from home, right?
Right.
And your services are not only running inside the headquarters, the data center, it could be in the cloud. So which means the wall is dissolving now, right? And since the wall is dissolving, who can you trust? So
Right.
the concept of zero trust is about, you never trust, you always verify. So when you see some people, let's say when we see Pat log on the system, we need to make sure this is the real Pat, not the hacker just using Pat's credential. So we want to check, Pat's, whether the location is good, timing is good, you work as usual. That's the IT zero trust. They focus on people, authentication, credential, etc. But we see OT zero trust is different. You need to extend it, not just the people, but also the machine. It's actually defined by the original zero trust document developed by NIST. Why machine? Because nowadays the operation is more and more autonomous and more automated. So operation has been just carried out by the machine. So if you got a machine or two machines being compromised, and that will jeopardize the whole operation.
Right.
So at the TXOne, our zero trust is to put more focus on the machine itself, across the life cycle, from the beginning when the machine being brought into the shop floor, and when the machine start to execute some application, and when the machine talk to some other machines, we have corresponding protection and the monitoring, and that's the OT zero trust approach we advocate.
Yeah. I'm sure it's technologically challenging to make that happen. So I'm impressed, because zero trust is all about knowing exactly what's coming and what's going, and you don't always have, not a boiler that was manufactured in 1956 doesn't necessarily automatically have an IP address. And I do understand the technologies to bring it together, but no, I'm impressed at it. I didn't expect that at all.
If I may, Pat. So you mentioned about several years ago the white paper, 150 ways to connect to OT.
Yes.
Why you need so many different ways? Because OT, the word of OT, it's just fragmented. You have different vertical, different business, and the plan, the shop floor, they are all different. So that's why, our direction to OTA zero trust sounds very rational, but it's difficult because then we need to understand the applications running on the asset, the machine itself, and the network communication, the language they speak, and then we need to learn about it. That's also, we learn from our customers operation, and again, our alliance, the friends we are making,
Yes.
right?
Your ecosystem.
Yeah, my ecosystem. Thanks.
That's good. So I'd like to shift this to a business discussion here. You are
Sure.
making a major play into the North American market. Two questions. First of all, why is right now the right time to do it? And second of all, uh, I have a pretty big North American audience, even though we broadcast global. Maybe tell us a little bit about the current state of the business, and maybe where you came from.
Oh, sure. So, why now? I think it's actually not just we are promoting the OT security. Large enterprise in North America, they do looking for this kind of solution quite badly. And why? Um, as I mentioned, right now, the whole OT it become more and more smart, and so the cyber threats and also become more and more severe. And before hackers, they mainly focus on government and financial sector where they can steal the data and sell the data. But right now, because the main methodology for hackers to monetize is ransomware,
Yeah.
and so they pick up the soft spot, and they think manufacturers are more easier to penetrate comparing to the financial and the government. So according to our observation, and also IBM published the same report. Right now, manufacturers are most targeted victims of cyber threat. And so that's why those large enterprises in manufacturing industry, they want to enhance their cybersecurity. And as you know, United States is the most advanced country in the world in terms of the automation, in terms of the AI, right? And so those large enterprises who already have autonomous manufacturing process, the autonomous operation, they need this kind of OT security solutions to protect their shop floor. And but it's not just here, right? TXOne is a global company. We have also subsidiaries in Europe, in Japan, and we are building a new one in Middle East Asia. So basically, we want to help those more advanced and automated manufacturers and the critical infrastructures with our cybersecurity solutions.
Yeah, you did get some recent impressive funding here, and I'm curious,
Thank you.
what does that mean in terms of growing the team, in terms of capabilities, maybe addressing some new markets? I'm not asking you to lay out your confidential business plan here, but I'm curious what you're going to be doing with the funding.
Yeah, we thank you, Pat. We just finished a 70 million Series B financing.
70, right?
Yeah, 70. Yeah, 70.
I thought I
Well,
heard 17, and I'm like, it's 70. That's amazing. Congratulations, by the way. Gosh, I love it.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. We are lucky. The economy situation really turned bad in second quarter this year,
Yeah.
and people have been worrying about the downturn and recession for a while. And so we are very fortunate to have all the support from the investors. And surely we are going to make a very good use of this money. And this money will be used for expansion of our business. There are so many larger companies in the world, and OT cybersecurity is new. So we are not in a box moving business. Our customers they want to work with us because we can share the so-called best practice in each different vertical, like a semiconductor, automotive, pharmaceutical, and etc. Because the more customers we serve, then we have more experience. What could be the best practice in that vertical, and that need more and more TXOne guys to be able to share and advocate
Yeah.
and exchange ideas and learn from our prospect and customers as well. So we're going to invest in the regions like America, in Europe, Japan, and Middle East Asia to grow the business, to make it grow more faster. But more important of all, we can reach out to more customers.
Again, congratulations. $70 million
Thank you.
in an environment like this is more than impressive. Let's move to the final question I have for you. I'd like to talk about the future. What are
Sure.
some of the longer term challenges that you're identifying that you see ahead for the markets that you serve in terms of OT, cybersecurity, and how are you thinking about approaching that in the future? I mean, I think we did a really good job talking about the challenges here right now. We talked about this great amount of funding that you got to expand your capabilities. So if you could illustrate the future, that would be wonderful.
Great question, Pat. So, IT security has been there for a while, and security is always a attached issue, which means you need to have a subject, then you protect it. So if we look into the history of cybersecurity, it starts from consumer and the IT and cloud, now the OT. And this is a new field. And if you think about IT, I would be very surprised if you go into any large enterprise and you can find one single laptop without protection, cyber
Right.
protection, right? But in OT, many large enterprise, they have tens of thousands of equipment in OT without any protection,
Right.
and it's not right. So for the time being, for the short term, I think the best way is to bring up the basic protection level to all the machine and the industrial network so that we can eliminate 99% of the threat. But we still have very advanced hackers or those hackers sponsored by nations, right? And
Right.
and these guys, just like a 007, they have basically unlimited resource and try to penetrate and make big damage. So in the long run, the technology we call the situational awareness is very important. I want to give you an example. Like in last May, a water treatment plant in Florida called Osma been hacked, and the hacker hacked into the water treatment plant and then try to poison the water, and they succeeded. But fortunately, because the water treatment plant, they have several stages, right? So in next stage in the sink, they have sensor, and the sensor detect that the water is not right,
Right.
and then they can stop this bigger tragedy. And so if you think about poison the water, it's not a virus. It's not even qualified as a network attack. It's a change of configuration, right?
Right.
But this change is just malicious. But if you are not able to learn what is normal, then it will be impossible to identify the abnormal. Cybersecurity technologies in last 30 years, they don't need to have the situational awareness. They don't need to know where they are. I mean, if I were a firewall, no matter I am in a bank, in a supermarket, or in a factory, I just block the network attack. But
Right.
how to respond to those abnormal behavior, as I mentioned. So that's like a technology challenge, and we are working on it. And the other thing is, I think the regulation and standard is also very important, right? I mean, in IT, the regulation has been developed in many ways, but in OT, and because of it's so fragmented, so it makes it very hard Man, in my opinion, I think the regulation need to go by the vertical. That's why at TXOne we work with one of the largest semiconductor foundry in the world, TSMC.
Right.
Together, we define a new standard for semiconductor sector called E187, and we promote the standard and try to increase the cybersecurity maturity of the whole semiconductor supply chain. So why we need a regulation and a standard? Because the cybersecurity thing is not just on your own company; it's on the whole supply chain, and because it's a trend, right? So you need to worry about the supplier of your supplier of your supplier, right? And again, hackers, they are so smart; they just pick the soft spot. So they are going to attack the small guys and gradually penetrate to the bigger guys. So there are many things to do. It took 200 years for Industry 1.0 to progress to 2.0, and another 100 years from 2.0 to 3.0, and 50 years shorter and shorter now from 3.0 to 4.0. So now we are in the stage of Industry 4.0, but I see we are still in a middle way, or not even close to the middle way. So as the industrial keep evolving, the cybersecurity need to keep evolving as well.
I'm still thinking about the poisoned water example, which is very scary, but I think it really highlights the real risks. And we loosely use the term OT, but the other way to look at OT is it's how our food is grown, how it's produced, how our energy is produced and distributed, how our water, our sewage. It's basically in Maslow's hierarchy. It's not air, but it's pretty darn close to what humans need to survive and thrive. So that was a great example, and you really did a mind expander for me about the long term. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate your long-term view of this and a very pragmatic understanding of this. I do agree with you, though, that the time is right. The time is now. There's a reason I go back and look at that white paper I did 11 years ago, and we have still not solved the security challenge. But I do think with solutions like TXOne, we're getting a lot closer to what we need to be able to truly scale and connect IT and OT. And let's just sit, even if we're not connecting those two, an understanding that the OT network is still under attack, even if it's not completely tied to the internet or even tied to the corporate WAN. So, Dr. Liu, I appreciate you coming on the show here, and I hope you will come on again to give us some updates about your progress as a company. Again, congratulations on your $70 million funding round. I can't wait to see what you do with it.
Thank you, Pat. The pleasure is all mine, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.
That sounds great. So this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, signing off for another More Insights and Strategy Insider podcast, where we have the most influential CEOs in the most impactful companies on the show. Let us know what you think. You know how to find me on Twitter. I spend way too much time on Twitter. And also, if you like what you heard, please hit that subscribe button. Take care. Have a great night, morning, afternoon, wherever you are around the planet. I appreciate our global audience, you. And thanks again, Dr.